Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2019 British Grand Prix. Now I'm sure you know the drill by now. Coming up, I'll be throwing a load of stats your way ahead of this race weekend. And as always, you can find timestamps to each part in the description and pinned in the comment section. Just a quick heads up, there will be a couple of tweaks to this week's preview for a few reasons, but mainly because there have been some interesting news stories to pop up over the last couple of days that I really want to cover in this video. There will, of course, be more on that later though, but let's start by having a look back at last year's Grand Prix. Right from the off, there was drama as Sergio Perez was spun round and ended up going backwards across a pit exit and was narrowly avoided by the Williams boys who had to start from the pit lane. A couple of corners later, Kimi Raikkonen locked up and hit Lewis Hamilton, causing the Mercedes to spin, and Kimi was later slapped with a 10-second time penalty for that incident. That meant that from a fan's perspective, we got to see some cracking action as the two drivers made their way back through the field. On lap 32, Marcus Ericsson's DRS was wide open as he went into turn 1, and that caused his Sauber to spin and he slammed into the wall very hard, bringing out the safety car and obviously ending his race. That resulted in a flurry of pit activity, including a stop for leader Sebastian Vettel, but both of the Silver Arrows stayed out, giving Bottas a temporary lead. After the restart, Kimi Raikkonen made a move on Max Verstappen, only for the Dutchman to take the place back around the outside of Luffield. Great move. I love seeing cars going side by side through that section of the track. Lap 38 came around and Carlos Sainz and Romain Grosjean collided at Copse, and that resulted in both cars ending up in the gravel and out of the race. That brought out the second safety car of the day and made the final few laps very interesting. On lap 47, Sebastian Vettel made a move for the lead, throwing his Ferrari up the inside of Bottas and making it stick. Absolutely brilliant move, super late, super aggressive, and just what we want to see from Formula 1. Hamilton and Raikkonen, by the way, also made their way past the struggling Finn in the final few laps. But all in all, it was a brilliant race, and to be honest, I'm sure we'd all love to see more of the same this year. Let's have a look at some of the stats from last year's race then. Lewis Hamilton took pole position with a time of a 1:25.892. And as mentioned there, Sebastian Vettel went on to take the win, with Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen taking the final places on the podium. Vettel did also set the fastest lap on lap 47 with a time of a 1:30.696. And there were 14 finishers in the race, and all of them were on the lead lap. What about the circuit then? Well, the track length is 5.891 kilometres, or if like me you work in miles, that is 3.660. There are 18 corners around Silverstone, that's 8 to the left and 10 to the right, and on Sunday there will be 52 race laps. Now this year there are just the 2 DRS zones. They are between turns 5 and 6 and turns 14 and 15, and the third zone that was added last year down the pit straight has been removed. And by the way, the race lap record was set by Lewis Hamilton back in 2017 with a time of 1:30.621. The run from pole to the turn 1 braking zone is 226.9 metres and the total pit lane lost time is 22.8 seconds. The highest lateral G around a circuit comes in at 4.5, that's at 3 corners, turn 1, turn 9 and turn 11, and drivers are at full throttle for 70% of the lap. So when it comes to overtaking, Mercedes say that turns 3 and 15 are the best opportunities, especially with that long run down the hanger straight to Stowe, but there are a few more good spots as well. We often see moves at turn 6, as mentioned earlier. Sebastian Vettel pulled off that great move on Valtteri Bottas last year there. But what we do often see is drivers going side by side through 6 and 7, which, by the way, if you are going to Silverstone this weekend, that is a great place to sit and watch the action. But honestly, even on the TV, it is fantastic to watch cars side by side through that section. I should also mention at this point that the gravel trap on the exit of turn 7 has been extended and brought closer to the track, and of course that means that there is less of a runoff area and mistakes are more likely to be punished. It takes a lot of bravery to make a move at Copse or turn 9 if you prefer, but we've seen throughout the years that drivers do like to go for it. Not that it went particularly well for Sainz and Grosjean last year, of course. It's also not uncommon to see drivers giving it a go into 16, but it's not the easiest of corners to get a move done and it can get quite tight in there. Although on the last lap with everything on the line, maybe someone will throw one in there. Let's just say that there are more than a couple of overtaking opportunities around Silverstone, but all of them require some real commitment from drivers, how it should be of course. The tyre compounds available for this weekend are the hard C1, the medium C2 and the soft C3, with Pirelli rating the tyre stress around the circuit at a maximum of 5 out of 5, with grip being 4 and abrasion rated at 3. Now last year's winning strategy was a 2-stopper thanks to a couple of safety cars, but I'd be surprised if the front runners take that approach this year unless of course we do see more safety cars, in which case it absolutely could be well worth a gamble. That being said, Silverstone is generally very demanding on the tyres due to the fast corners, so there will likely need to be some tyre management to avoid making a costly second stop. Quite a long pit lane at Silverstone. The circuit has once again been resurfaced, so I think you can expect to see some very quick lap times this weekend. But with the new surface, the track may well be slippery in the early stages of the weekend, and it will take a while for it to rubber in. But at time of recording, the weather forecast says that Friday will be wet with around an 80% chance of rain throughout the day. That could well make things very interesting as the rest of the weekend is set to be dry. And as we've seen in the past, wet Fridays mean less relevant data is gathered, and that often results in a very unpredictable Saturday and Sunday. So to be honest, fingers crossed for a Friday washout. British weather, don't let me down this time. So quickly onto that news that I mentioned at the start of the video, and I'm going to kick off with the good news, the announcement that Silverstone will remain on the F1 calendar as the host of the British Grand Prix for at least the next 5 years. So in a news conference yesterday, Chase Carey made it official and reiterated that Liberty are committed to preserving historic venues. There we go then, as simple as that. The British Grand Prix stays until 2024, and I for one am absolutely delighted. Yes, I know perhaps there is a big chunk of British bias there, but moving away from that, Silverstone is a great track that the drivers love, the fans flock to, and more often than not, it throws up some fantastic racing. Great news, and I'm really hoping now we'll hear more on some of the other events that are under threat soon. Elsewhere, and McLaren have confirmed that both Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris will be staying with the team for 2020. The team released a statement which said the following: "The pair have integrated well into the team over the past 9 months as McLaren progress on its road to recovery. Retaining both drivers for 2020 echoes the team's commitment to consistency and continuity, which are key pillars of the team's return to competitiveness." Look, it is great that McLaren have confirmed this now, but it's hardly surprising really. Both Sainz and Norris have been absolutely brilliant so far in 2019, and I'm pretty sure that when they were announced last year, they were both on multi-year deals. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is nice to know for sure, and the team can now crack on with the rest of the season without having to deal with all this silly season speculation hovering around them again. And I've got to be honest, if I was in McLaren's position, I'd have taken exactly the same decision. And finally, it's all kicking off at Haas. On Wednesday night, Rich Energy put out a tweet stating that they were terminating their contract with Haas, blaming the team's poor performance. They also stated their disappointment at finishing behind Williams in Austria, not beating Red Bull, and how F1's PC attitude inhibits their business. I mean, wow, how many people can you insult in one tweet? And by the way, I should say, the funniest part of that tweet in my view is that they consider themselves a legitimate business. How very cute. So that's that then. Rich Energy are no longer associated with Haas. Or are they? This morning, Haas put out a tweet quoting Gunther Steiner, who said that Rich Energy are still the title sponsor of the team, but that he couldn't make any further comments due to, quote, commercial confidentiality. That is how you handle a situation. It's called professionalism. Shortly after that, as the plot continued to thicken, it was reported that the Rich Energy shareholders had not been consulted before the tweet announcing the contract termination was put out, and it is believed that the tweet was either written or authorised by William Storey, who apparently does not even have the authority to terminate deals. Not, honestly, a huge surprise. I think there's been a lot of speculation over the last few months that William Storey is behind that Twitter account, and looking at some of the tweets, it really is fairly obvious. But as things stand at time of recording, the latest is that the Rich Energy shareholders are trying to save the deal and clear up what has been described as a PR mess. So, to summarise, Storey doesn't want to be associated with Haas anymore. Haas have a contract and are standing by it. The Rich Energy shareholders want to save the deal. And it turns out you can't terminate a contract by throwing your toys out of your pram with a stroppy tweet because you stole a logo and lost a court case. Who knew? As ever, if there are any further developments on all of this, I will post a link in the description to an article, but it's all a bit of a mess at the moment. Oh, and I guess in related news, super quickly, Williams have announced that their deal with title sponsor Rocket, I think it's Rocket, but you know who I mean. That deal has been extended until the end of 2023. Finally, some good news for Williams, who of course almost did a deal with Rich Energy last year before they turned to Haas. On to my predictions then, and it's quite a tough call this weekend. Mercedes should be strong again after a disappointing weekend in Austria. I'm going to stop saying weekend in a minute, I promise. But Ferrari, in theory at least, should also be strong, especially when you consider their apparent power advantage and the fact that Silverstone is a very quick track. The problem for them is that, as we've seen so far in 2019, they may be quick in a straight line, but Mercedes are more than capable of making that time up in the corners. Honestly, I really do think we're going to be in for a close one at Silverstone. It is still hard to look beyond Mercedes for pole, and I think Lewis Hamilton will take that, and to be honest, I reckon he will convert that into victory on Sunday. However, I'm not expecting it to be a runaway victory. I really do think Ferrari will run them close, and so I've gone with Sebastian Vettel for second and Valtteri Bottas for third. If we do end up with a safety car or two, though, that could easily change and could also bring Red Bull right into the mix. I refuse to write Red Bull off completely when it comes to race weekends, but I don't tend to look at Silverstone as a track that suits the Bulls. But that being said, a lot of us thought that that would be the case in Austria, and they were much quicker there than expected, so who knows, they could well spring a surprise. My one to watch is Pierre Gasly. It's got to be honest. He needs a good weekend, and as I said in my video on him last week, the run to the summer break is so important, and that starts now. He must start performing, and I would absolutely love to see him start that turnaround at the British Grand Prix. As I've just said, no, it might not be traditionally a Red Bull track, but if he can get closer to his teammate, finish in 6th, assuming of course there's no drama for the top 3 teams, and maybe even pick up the fastest lap, that would be a solid result for him. As for the midfield, definitely keep an eye on McLaren as they try to build on their recent run of excellent form, and all jokes and banter aside about Rich Energy, it will be very interesting to see if Haas can sort out their tyre issues, and if they can translate their apparent quali pace into race pace. I suppose to summarise this preview in one line, I'm really hoping we get an action-packed race again, just like we did 2 weeks ago in Austria. That is it then for the British Grand Prix preview, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of this weekend's race in the comment section down below. Now, I know this is a Formula 1 channel, but if you are a fan of Formula E, then the new Formula E Word channel is all set up and ready to go with new content coming soon. Yes, I know the season is almost over, but there will also be regular updates during the off-season, so if that interests you, then make sure you follow the link below and subscribe to the channel. If you are not interested in that though, then I will be back soon on this channel with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.